You know those stories that make you look around your room a little differently at night, where you suddenly check under the bed or glance at the corners of the room just to be sure you're alone? Well, this is one of those. It's not a ghost story. It's not some urban legend. This really happened, and to me it's more terrifying than any haunted house could ever be. Because the scariest part is, it's entirely possible it could happen to any one of us. Imagine this. You're a university student, living away from home with friends for the first time. You've just gotten back from a break, tired from traveling, ready to crawl into your bed and start a new term. Everything seems normal. But the next morning, you wake up to realize something in your room has been moved. Not a lot, just a little. Something small. Something you can explain away. And so you shrug it off. But then it happens again. And again. And then one night, you wake up and realize you're not alone in the room. That's the nightmare one girl went through, and tonight I'm going to tell you her story. This happened to a friend of my friend's housemate back when they were all at university. So this isn't some vague internet rumor. It happened to someone real. And when I first heard it, it left me with chills that didn't go away for days. So let's go back. She was in her second year at university, living in a shared house with 3 other students. You know the kind of house. Slightly old, slightly creaky, the kind that's been rented out to students year after year. 4 bedrooms, a shared kitchen, mismatched furniture, a little worn down but cozy in its own way. At Easter break, everyone went home to their parents' houses. Weeks later, she was the first of her group to come back. Her parents had dropped her off, helped her carry her bags in, and after a long day of travel, she unpacked just enough to feel settled and then went to bed. The first night back was perfectly normal. Nothing strange, nothing unusual. But the next morning, she woke up and noticed something odd. A few things in her room were out of place. Not in a major way, just not where she thought she had left them. A book that had been on the desk was now slightly tilted. A hairbrush that had been on the vanity was sitting on the chair. Little things. Things she assumed she must have moved herself while unpacking the night before. She shrugged it off. That night, she went to bed again, and the next morning, more things were out of place. The TV had been angled slightly differently. Her desk chair was pulled out even though she was sure she'd pushed it in. At first she laughed. Okay, funny. Who's messing with me? She went to her housemates and told them to knock it off, but they all swore it wasn't them. We didn't touch your stuff, they said. Why would we? They even seemed a little concerned. Maybe she was sleepwalking. Maybe she was just remembering wrong. But the third morning, it got weirder. This time, it wasn't just small objects. Larger things had been moved. Her laundry basket wasn't where she had left it. Her chair was facing the opposite direction. Her TV remote was balanced on the edge of the bed as if someone had deliberately placed it there. That's when she got angry. She stormed out to her housemates again. Seriously, this isn't funny anymore. Stop going into my room. But again, they swore they hadn't. They were starting to look genuinely worried themselves. She tried to brush it off, but by the 4th night, the unease had really started to sink in. You know that feeling where something is off, but you can't quite put your finger on it? That's how she felt every time she went into her room. That night she went to bed, tossing and turning, unable to shake the feeling that something wasn't right. And sometime in the middle of the night, she woke up. At first she didn't know why. It was dark, quiet. The kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat. She rolled over, trying to go back to sleep. And that's when she saw it. Figure. Sitting at her desk. In the darkness, she could just make out the shape of a man. Sitting perfectly still, facing her. She froze. For a moment, her brain refused to accept what her eyes were seeing. But then it hit her. There was someone in her room. A stranger. Her heart leapt into her throat. She bolted upright, leapt off the bed, and ran straight out of the room. She slammed the door, locked it from the outside, and ran to her phone with shaking hands. She called the police. When the police arrived, they asked her to unlock the door. She stood back, terrified, and when they went in, sure enough, there he was, a man, early 20s, sitting calmly at her desk, as if he had every right to be there. He wasn't violent. He didn't resist. He just sat there quietly until they arrested him and took him away. You'd think the horror would be over then, but it wasn't. Because what they learned afterward made everything so much worse. At first, the police didn't have answers, they just said he was being taken in. But a couple of days later, the truth came out. The man was a missing person. He had been reported missing from a care home not far down the road. He was mentally handicapped, and his story was heartbreaking. He had once lived in that very house. It had been his childhood home. He had lived there with his mother, who had been his full-time carer. But when she passed away about a year earlier, he had been placed in the care home. When he ran away from the home, where did he go? Back to the only place that had ever felt like home to him. The house where he'd grown up. The house where his mother had cared for him. The house where he'd once had his bedroom. The same bedroom the student was living in. When the police questioned him, he admitted it. He had been there for weeks. Not just 1 or 2 nights. 2.5 weeks. Sleeping under her bed, coming out at night while she was asleep, to move her things. Not to steal them. Not to hurt her. But to move them back to how he remembered them when it was his room. Putting the chair where it had been when he lived there. Angling the TV the way he liked it. Rearranging her belongings so the room felt familiar to him. That detail hit her the hardest. 2.5 weeks. He had been under her bed for nearly 3 weeks waiting for her to sleep. She had lived her life normally, gone to bed every night, thinking she was alone. And all that time, he was right there, just inches away. It's hard to describe the terror of realizing something like that. Ghost stories make you jump. But this was real. A flesh and blood person hiding in plain sight, living in her room with her without her even knowing. After that night, she never went back. She packed her things and moved straight out. That's when she ended up moving in with my friend. And honestly, I don't blame her. Who could ever sleep peacefully in that room again? It's one of those stories that sticks with you. Because it makes you question your own space. How safe is your room, really? How well do you know your house? Are you really alone when you think you are? And maybe the scariest part of all, it wasn't even malice. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was just lost, clinging to the last place that had felt like home. And yet, for the girl who lived through it, it was still the most terrifying experience of her life. It's the kind of story that makes you check your locks twice, that makes you peek under the bed, even if you feel silly for doing it. Because after hearing this, can you really say you're sure nothing's there? Thanks for sticking with me through this chilling true story. If you enjoyed it and want more real-life scary tales, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and follow True Threads for more stories that'll keep you looking over your shoulder at night.